a 140 cubic inch inline-4 engine designed to be fuel-efficient and lightweight on city streets. Sounds harmless enough. Yet this engine, the Chevy 2300, is widely regarded as one of the key reasons Chevrolet's reputation crumbled during the 1970s. The Chevy 2300 debuted as the heart of the Vega, a compact car that was supposed to help GM fend off the rising tide of Japanese imports flooding into America. But instead of becoming a hero, it quickly turned into a nightmare. Mechanical failures, oil burning, overheating, piston damage plagued thousands of buyers and turned the Vega into a punchline for an entire generation. In today's video, we'll uncover the story of this engine that was meant to be modern and revolutionary. From its ambitious beginnings and bold engineering to its deadly flaws and long-lasting consequences. How could a small engine like the Chevy 2300 shake the foundations of a giant like General Motors? In the late 1960s, America was witnessing a major shift in car buying behavior. Gas prices were rising, urbanization was spreading, and young middle-class consumers began prioritizing compactness, efficiency, and durability over raw muscle. In that environment, Japanese imports like the Toyota Corolla, Datsun 510, and Honda N600 began to flourish. General Motors, the undisputed king of the American auto industry, felt the pressure growing. In response, they planned to launch an all-new vehicle, compact, modern, affordable, and powered by a four-cylinder engine, unlike anything they had built before. That car would be the Chevrolet Vega, and at its core was something radically different from GM tradition: an all-aluminum 140 cubic inch engine, smaller, lighter, and more efficient. With ambitions to directly compete with Japanese automakers, the Vega project was pushed at unprecedented speed. GM bet everything on a next-generation small engine. But in the process, they overlooked many fundamental engineering test protocols. Engineers were pressured to deliver something fast, cheap, and flashy, yet still meet every marketing claim. On paper, the Chevy 2300 was a groundbreaking engine. It marked the first time General Motors developed a modern four-cylinder with a 140 cubic inch displacement, built entirely from aluminum, both block and head. This engine featured an inline-4 SOHC single overhead camshaft layout with 2 valves per cylinder and a single-barrel carburetor. To reduce weight, GM employed high-pressure aluminum die casting instead of traditional cast iron. As a result, the engine weighed only about 255 pounds, improving weight distribution and fuel economy in the Vega. A key innovation was the elimination of cast iron cylinder liners. Instead, GM used a chemical etching process to expose silicon within the aluminum cylinder walls, referred to as etched aluminum bores. This was a bold move to reduce both weight and production costs. Additionally, the 2300 design aimed to simplify construction, standardize components, and reduce the number of cylinder head bolts. Decisions made in pursuit of lower costs and faster assembly. But the cost of that simplification and cost-cutting became evident as soon as the engine left the test bench and faced the realities of everyday driving. One by one, critical technical flaws began to surface, not only shortening engine life, but also posing serious risks to both customers and Chevrolet's reputation. First came the etched aluminum bores, originally promoted as a breakthrough, which turned out to be a major weakness. The silicon surface inside the cylinder walls wore down quickly under real-world stress, especially if owners skipped oil changes or used the wrong type of oil. Once that layer was gone, pistons scraped directly against the aluminum, causing scoring, loss of compression, and severe oil consumption, even piston damage. Next were the head gasket failures. The mismatch in thermal expansion between aluminum, block, and steel, bolts, guides, head components, caused deformation at contact points. Coolant would leak into the combustion chamber, oil would seep out, and eventually, warped cylinder heads became a costly and recurring issue. To make matters worse, the cooling system itself was undersized. A small radiator and weak coolant circulation led to frequent overheating, especially in warmer US states. The thin, lightweight aluminum block made the engine highly sensitive to thermal variation, a detail GM hadn't fully planned for. Owners also reported oil-fouled spark plugs, worn rings, weak ignition, and engine knocking before even reaching 30,000 miles, a shockingly low figure for any internal combustion engine. As waves of complaints and customer reports grew louder, General Motors found itself on the defensive. Initially, they downplayed the severity of the issues, claiming that users didn't fully understand how to operate the new engine and that many problems could be resolved through proper maintenance. But as media coverage intensified and small lawsuits started to emerge, GM was forced to act. They introduced the Durabuilt 2.3 version in the mid-1970s, which featured a few improvements: reinforced head gaskets, an upgraded cooling system, and slight piston redesigns to reduce oil consumption. GM also extended the engine warranty from 12,000 to 50,000 miles as a form of goodwill to appease customers. However, these efforts came too late. Hundreds of thousands of early Vegas and Astras had already suffered engine failures. Dealerships were overwhelmed with costly warranty claims, placing enormous strain on Chevrolet's service infrastructure. Internal GM memos reportedly admitted that repair costs exceeded the profit margin per vehicle sold. Perhaps most critically, instead of transparently owning up to the engineering flaws, GM opted for a damage control strategy, focusing on public relations and calming backlash rather than a full-scale technical overhaul. That approach deeply eroded consumer trust, not just in the 2300 engine, but in the Chevrolet brand as a whole. And once trust begins to crack, it only takes a small push for an entire brand image to collapse. For Chevrolet, that push came in the form of the Chevy 2300. The Vega had once been hailed as America's answer to Japanese cars, a compact, efficient model powered by a cutting-edge engine developed in-house by GM. But in reality, a storm of engine problems, extended warranties, and overburdened service centers shook the trust of the very audience GM was trying to win over. Young drivers, middle-class families, and urban commuters looking for an alternative to full-size sedans. Worse still, many buyers chose the Vega as their first-ever car, hoping it would lead to a lasting relationship with GM, only to feel like guinea pigs in an unfinished engineering experiment. For them, that first car wasn't just bad, it was a betrayal. From there, a quiet yet powerful shift occurred. Consumers began gravitating toward Japanese brands like Toyota, Honda, and Datsun, where compact didn't mean compromised. And once trust is lost, it's incredibly hard to earn back. Despite its undeniable failure in the marketplace, the Chevy 2300 continued to evolve through several variations as GM tried to salvage both performance and public perception. The initial version, code-named L11, launched with the 1971 Chevy Vega and made around 90 horsepower with a single-barrel carburetor. Later, GM introduced the L22 variant, featuring minor tweaks to fuel delivery and ignition timing to improve durability and reduce oil consumption. A more ambitious update came in the form of the Durabuilt 2.3, released in the mid-1970s. GM reinforced the engine block, improved head gaskets, upgraded the cooling system, and extended the engine warranty to 50,000 miles. Unfortunately, the original engine's reputation had already done its damage, and these improvements didn't change public perception. GM also collaborated with British firm Cosworth Engineering to create a high-performance version known as the Cosworth Vega. This engine featured a 16-valve DOHC aluminum head, electronic fuel injection, and hand-balanced crankshaft, boosting output to 110 horsepower, far above the base engine. However, with limited production and a high price tag, the Cosworth Vega never gained mainstream traction. Turbocharged test versions, 5-speed manual transmissions, and installations in vehicles like the Monza, Astra, Skyhawk, and Starfire were also explored. But none of these efforts managed to redeem the Chevy 2300's reputation. Looking back at the Chevy 2300's entire journey, one major question must be asked. Was the problem rooted in engineering, or in the way GM managed and delivered it to the market? Conceptually, the Chevy 2300 wasn't a bad engine. A lightweight, 140 cubic inch aluminum power plant built using modern die casting technology was exactly the right direction for the compact car trend of the 1970s. GM's engineers genuinely pushed boundaries, especially with the etched aluminum bores, which were considered cutting edge at the time. But the real failure came from GM's upper management. The engine was developed at record speed, just about 2 years from concept to mass production, with very little long-term field testing. GM traded reliability for innovation and speed to market. On top of that, the pressure from marketing, over-promising performance, and durability set consumer expectations far beyond what the 2300 could realistically deliver. While engineers needed more time to refine the design, executives insisted on releasing it no matter what. After a string of failures, the Chevy 2300 was quietly phased out of GM's engine lineup by the late 1970s. The Vega was discontinued in 1977, and the entire H-body platform soon gave way to more technically safe replacements. The name 2300 was never used again. In Chevrolet's later marketing materials, technical brochures, and ads, the term practically vanished, as if GM wanted to erase the memory altogether. There was no reboot, no major overhaul, and no lasting enthusiast community, unlike engines like the 350 small block or the 454 big block. Yet the Chevy 2300's greatest legacy isn't in specs or performance. It's in the strategic lesson it left behind. It became a textbook case in product management courses, market failure studies, and the dangers of releasing underdeveloped technology too early. Many GM engineers later admitted the 2300's failure forced them to rethink development strategies, to be more thorough, more patient, and more cautious with unproven innovations. It's that very shift in mindset that now leads many to reconsider the Chevy 2300, not with harsh judgment, but with a question. Were we too quick to condemn an engine that may have simply been ahead of its time, launched in the wrong context? Nearly 50 years have passed since the Chevy 2300 debuted. On paper, many of the technologies it used, such as linerless aluminum bores, high-pressure die casting, and lightweight engine architecture, were once viewed as risky, but have since become industry standards. Today's engines, like GM's Ecotec and Mazda's Skyactiv lines, use similar principles, but with modern materials and tighter quality control. Even the Cosworth Vega, a high-performance variant based on the 2300, received critical praise from engineers and enthusiasts, and failed mostly due to its high price and niche positioning. This suggests that the problem may not have been the engine's design itself, but rather its timing, testing process, and execution. Had it launched a few years later with better preparation, the Chevy 2300 might have told a very different story. Of course, failure is still failure. But in engineering, it's often the biggest missteps that pave the way for real breakthroughs. And from that perspective, the Chevy 2300 might not just be the engine everyone hated, but the stepping stone to an entire generation of better-built power plants. The Chevy 2300 wasn't the most powerful engine, nor the most durable, but it stands as one of the clearest examples of the gap between concept and execution, between technical ambition and managerial limits. It wasn't just a failed power plant, it was a turning point that reminded the American auto industry of the importance of patience, rigorous testing, and never underestimating the customer. So what do you think? Does the Chevy 2300 deserve to be buried as a black mark in history? Or was it a necessary stumble that helped pave the way for future progress? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more forgotten stories, spectacular failures, and costly lessons from the golden age of American motoring.